stoked like it's your birthday and you got a Nintendo. My fire red, my leaf green, hard as a diamond with the platinum sheen.
What is up, my wizards? Dev from mtg. You see the channel down there. We do deck techs. We got one, in fact, today, right here. Yeah, I've been meaning to bring this one to you for a while. We saw some of this at PT Magic Origins. Really interested in it and, you know, wanted to make a deck out of it. But the sort of the $10 budget deck tech idea that really took off, so this kind of pushed back any quote-unquote serious deck techs. So this is my first serious deck tech in like a week. And even though it is serious, it's got the silliest name ever. This is Mardu Goggles. And it's really cool and can do a lot of cool stuff. Here I go. Switch it up. Let's talk about the spells first. We normally don't do that, but since, you know, it's pretty much a very spell-based deck, gotta do it. This looks very much like a sort of variant mono-red, you know, that includes white and black for a couple of different spells and uses goggles to just copy all the cool things. So here's what we're doing. 1 copy of Fiery Impulse along with 4 copies of Wild Slash. Wild Slash only getting more important as red aggro becomes the dominant deck in the format. And again, I think we'll see plenty of red aggro at local FNMs and things like that. It's an easy deck to build, one of the more budget decks in the format for being as good as it is. So I really think we'll be seeing an awful lot of it everywhere. So with that in mind, Wild Slash is very good, and particularly Fiery Impulse is amazing when you're playing 18 instants or sorceries in your deck. It only gets better. So we got to play these. 2 Magnetic Insight. This is really that's even if you're not copying it with the goggles. Obviously, if you're goggling this, it gets ridiculous. I mean, 1 mana, discard 1 land, draw 4 cards. That's absolutely crazy. And a deck that's always hunting for, you know, burn or some other form of removal, you know, this can be incredible, even if it's not copied. I mean, 1 mana, discard a land. It's card selection more than it is card advantage, you know, but card selection is very important in this. And again, when we goggle it, it's just bonkers. 4 copies of Lightning Strike. I might as well just be going over, you know, all the burn and Magnetic Insight. We need 4 copies of Lightning Strike. If you'll notice, by the way, as I go down this list, this is the only card that won't survive rotation. And we'll probably get some sort of equivalent to Lightning Strike. We've had Lightning Strike in the format for like 4 years? At least 3 years now. So we're going to continue to have something like Lightning Strike in the format. I'm like 90% sure about that. So this is the only thing the deck loses upon rotation a couple of months from now. So the deck might get like way better after rotation. We'll have to see, because it really doesn't lose anything at all, and that's really cool. Except for Lightning Strike, which I'm sure will get a thing. But for now, we have to play 4 of these. 2 copies of Exquisite Firecraft. Not only is this 8 damage when you copy it, I mean, it's 4 almost always uncounterable damage against, you know, everything to the head. That's or kill a guy. That's just unbelievable. The card, I knew this card was good, and everyone was like, oh no. And then at the Pro Tour, like, we saw a lot of Firecraft, especially in these mono red decks that are good, and even in the blue red Thoppers builds. Firecraft is an important card in this format, and I think we can all see why. I mean, it sucks it's a sorcery. Let's all get over that. 3 mana, 4 damage to any target. Quite good, and the occasional uncounterability, that's a hard word to say, is just nuts, like against a lot of decks. So yes, Firecraft in the main. 2 copies of Kolaghan's Command. Wanted this to be a 4 of, to be honest with you, just couldn't find the space. There's more in the board because this card is ridiculous when goggled. Now when it's not, it's still okay. Again, we see a lot of mono red aggro in the format, and that shock ability can take care of a guy, of any guy in the deck. That's pretty good. Aside from that, it's good against control in that you can make them discard, bust up an artifact. We see a lot of Thopters, so I think the card has play and versatility against a lot of the things that we're seeing in the format, and I want to play at least a couple of copies of it. When goggled, it's especially ridiculous. Pretty much say the same thing about Mardu Charm. We're playing 3 copies of that card because it's really good. Again, we can force them to discard twice. We can make 4 1/1s. We can kill 2 guys, you know, almost any guy in the format except for Rhino. So really good card. Again, even if we're not copying it, not bad in any way. And when we copy it, it just becomes absolutely insane. That's the thing about a lot of the cards in this deck. You just go through Gather and you're like, what are the most ridiculous cards I could realistically cast and then copy with goggles? These are definitely some of them, obviously. And the next one, in fact, Crackling Doom. I know we want to play some number of these. At least 3, I think, is pretty good. Some people might want to play 2. Some people might want 4. I'll split the difference and play 3. Obviously, this is good against a lot of the hexproofy dudes that we can't target in the format. That's pretty cool. And when copied, 4 to the face and sack 2 dudes. I mean, again, this is really, really crazy. Even when it's not copied, I think this is an important spell for any Mardu deck to play. So when we do copy it, it's just dumb, especially against all the mid-range strategies. Green-Red Devotion is still an important deck for the next couple of months. And getting them to sacrifice like 2 dudes, that's very good. Of course, they'll sacrifice a mana guy sometimes, but sometimes you'll also get a Pelucranos or Storm Breath or, you know, whatever, Genesis Hydra. You'll get things off of 2 Crackling Dooms. Card is very good. And moving into the creatures, we're playing 3 Monastery Swiftspear because we pretty much have to. You know, 18 instants and sorceries in the deck. I feel like it's a given that lower on the curve, if we're playing creatures at all, we play Monastery Swiftspear. Speaking of prowess guys, we're playing 2 copies at least of Seeker of the Way here. This, again, against aggro decks, you know, and even some mid-range decks, this will give us a fair amount of value, help us stay in the game on blocks, and be aggressive against other decks and help us build our life total up in the early game. So, card is very, very versatile, does a lot of things, want to at least play the 2 copies. Speaking of 2-mana white creatures, let's play 4 copies of Soulfire Grandmaster. I bet everyone was waiting on that one. Yeah, we're playing so much burn in this deck, and we have access to white, so we're going to play Soulfire. Definitely. I really don't see any reason not to play this. Some people might, you know, bristle at a 4 of, but I'm down for a 4 of Soulfire Grandmaster all day. Helps the deck go long, get a lot of value out of things, and, you know, obviously way better than even just that. We get our spells back and stuff. There's so many good things about Soulfire that, yeah, we'll totally play the place in a hurry. And to finish off the creatures, people probably asking where this lady is too. Here's 3 copies of Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh, or Roaring Flame, whatever. It's very, very, very easy to flip Lady Chandra in this deck. And once you do get her flip, she's a clock. She's a clock. And she usually takes out lots of other important creatures. I mean, we can flip her very early, usually just the turn after she comes in. Flip her 4th turn, start taking out dudes. And, you know, a lot of big aggro decks in the format. Red aggro, goblins, elves, even some soldiers at your F&Ms. You see mono white occasionally, even at bigger events. So, very, very good. That just deal 2 damage to a creature. That's super relevant right now. And just putting them on a clock every turn if you're playing against control or something, that's also incredible. They like have to draw Hero's Downfall to deal with Chandra. And not to mention, if you ultimate, you win the game. Her ultimate basically says you win the game. So take that how you will. This card's really good, especially in this. Let me say this too before I move on. The interaction between Chandra and Soulfire Grandmaster is just, you have to play with these 2 cards together, dude. Like 2nd turn Soulfire, 3rd turn Chandra just sets you up for so much ridiculous junk. It's gonna like give them the worst day ever. So yeah, cards are awesome together. Just want to point that out. Hey, let's finish off the main deck. 3 copies of Pyromancer's Goggles, because that's what the deck is called. Really don't have to talk too much about this, probably. The deck does this. But the deck can survive without Goggles. It's a burn deck that plays some, you know, value creatures that have prowess, and, you know, Chandra flips, you know, Soulfire Grandmaster, you get lifelink, you can buy your spells back. So the creatures do a lot for the deck, don't get me wrong. And the spells are very, very good, I think, especially in this metagame. So, a lot going for the deck even without the Goggles. When you do play the Goggles, things get out of control very, very fast. Exquisite Firecraft deals 8 damage. Wild Slash deals 4. Lightning Strike 6. Crackling Doom, they sack 2 dudes and take 4 to the face. Mardu Charm, you kill a guy, you make him discard. There's so many things once you get a Goggles out, and it only helps you play more spells, you know. It's a ramp device in and of itself. So, and there are times you play this 5th turn, untap 6th turn, and this will allow you to play 2 spells. You know, it does happen. Or even 3, depending on what you got in your hand. So, definitely does things. You know, you can Magnetic Insight and still have, you know, 6 mana if you drop a land that turn. So, not in any way bad, I think, with Goggles. It's a pretty interesting, very, very top of the curve choice for certain decks. The card has very much impressed me. It does take some time, you know. It's hard to resolve against certain decks. It's a little slow. A lot of decks go up under Goggles. There are definitely reasons why it didn't do as well at the Pro Tour as people expected it to do. But again, upon rotation, when Green-Red Devotion isn't a thing anymore at all, and Green-Red Devotion goes way over the top of this, or, you know, Mono-Red Aggro is going to take a fair hit when it loses some of these cards, so it's not going to be able to go up under this deck as well as it used to, and this card loses almost nothing, or this deck loses almost nothing. So it could be in a much, much better position after rotation. Here's the lands, because we have to play lands in the deck. Mardu mana is pretty much figured out by now. This is what the deck loses the most upon rotation, is it loses temples, but we'll just start playing more fetch lands and things like that. And I'm almost 100% sure that we'll get some sort of cool non-basic land cycle in BFZ that will help replace these temples, at least somewhat. So there is that to look forward to. Here's the board. I think the board is really, really important in this deck because it has bad matchups against a lot of things that are important in the format for the next 2 months. It has bad matchup against red aggro. Red aggro goes way up under this. Green-red devotion. This deck feels like a mid-range deck in some ways. You know, it's a fast mid-range deck. But Green-Red Devotion goes way over the top of it. And even though this feels mid-rangey with the goggles and all, just doesn't have the same payoff that a dedicated mid-ranger Devotion deck has. So, you know, with that in mind, that's probably why it falters against some of the bigger decks in the format. And it has pretty good game against control because it can just become a burn deck, honestly. Just go into burn mode. You don't have to worry about wasting your spells on creatures, just burn them to the face. But that in mind, your Pyromancer's Goggles will almost never resolve against a dedicated control deck. So there is that. But we're still packing Exquisite Firecraft, which is very good, very good. Even cards like Lightning Strike and Wild Slash go way up under any strategy they're employing right now. So pretty good game against control, but other decks we're in trouble against. So that in mind, again, I'll say it one more time for the record, deck will probably get way better upon rotation. Now the power rankings right here in front of you are actually a little low for a deck like this, but higher than some of the decks I've done in a long time. You know, I think it's a 58 or 59 when you add the entire thing up total score-wise, and it's pretty, you know, in between budget, so it's also in between score. You know, a lot of the top tier decks will see total scores in the, you know, mid 60s to a 70 even, and the budget decks we do will see, you know, low 50s. This is right in the middle right there, and the cost of it is right in the middle. It reflects that. So, you know, the deck is actually, it plays a fair amount of powerful cards. It has decent speed. Again, we're slightly faster than the average mid-range deck, but they have a much, much better payoff. This affects our versatility and resiliency stats, but mostly our versatility. Offense and defense, we're really not doing, we're kind of split between the two, right? We have some creatures we're burning to the face, but we're not dedicated into offense. And again, we're burning things, so we have some defense, but we're not dedicated to that end either. So those numbers suffer, quote unquote, for that. We do a little bit better boards than game one because we can really focus our strategies against these decks that we have terrible, terrible matchups against. And we're fairly consistent, although you do hit the odd patch occasionally in a game where you just can't get the mana that you need, you know, because it's a very dedicated red deck that runs Mardu spells. You know what I mean? So there are times where you just have like white and black mana in your hand, no red. What the hell is this? I mean, but in any case, it's a super fun deck, and once you start actually like making the goggles work, copying things for, you know, 6, 8 damage with extra added effects on, you just feel like a madman. Like it's just, this deck makes you feel like a genius, a mad scientist. So I really, really like the deck. I think it's a heck of a lot of fun, and again, one more time, why not? Broken record, better after rotation. I am almost 100% sure about that statement. So let me know how you feel. I think it's super fun, and I've got a couple of ideas for next time as usual. More on the $10 budget decks. I've got a couple of those coming up. Don't worry, in the next couple of days. But what I want to do next is either I've had one guy, consistently asking for blue-green flash. So what I'm either going to do is blue-green flash, right, or Simic mid-range. I think that's a good deck too. But one of those two, or I've had a couple of requests for the Great Aurora recently, and I've got a couple of things I'm kicking around for that are starting to work and were horrible during conceptualization, but we'll talk about that later. So either Simic Flash or midrange, or the Great Aurora, which is really awesome, it turns out. So let me know which one you like better. And in the meantime, if you like the content, you can always like, share, comment, subscribe. It all helps out our channel like a lot. You have no idea how much it helps, especially sharing. Please do all the things and comment because we like hearing from you. I am Dev from Strictly Better MTG. I'll see you later. Thanks for watching, my wizards.